Get ready to uncover truths and reality of today's politics. Here's your host, Lori Mills.
Hi, welcome to Uncover California. I'm Lori Mills, your host. Today we have a special guest on, Devon Archer. You may know that name. Devon was Hunter Biden's business partner. And for a very long time, I've been trying to get him on, but he really couldn't talk because he was fighting the wonderful Department of Justice under the Biden administration. Kind of weird, right? Anyways, President Trump has pardoned him, so he is free to tell us everything that we want to know. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Who's ready to have some fun? You guys, you can now charter the Scarlet Belle paddle wheel riverboat. You guys, the boat holds 150 guests. If you're planning on getting married, you can host a wedding here. If you just want to have a good party, they'll do that too. The boat holds up to 150 guests with all-inclusive packages available. There also is a midweek group discount if you're interested. They have a fully stocked bar, full-service catering, and they'll help you with event planning and theme ideas. I can tell you we did a Trumptilla on this boat, and we're going to do it again. They also have another vessel that you can throw casino night parties on. There is nothing better than the Scarlet Belle in the Channel Islands Harbor. Use promo code Callie and get a great deal on your next event. So Devon Archer, you might have heard his name, was Hunter Biden's business partner. He was the founder of Rosemont, Seneca, and then went on to work with Burisma with Joe Biden. Well, the Bidens basically had him as their fall guy because what else could they do? So I'm very pleased today to bring on Devon Archer. Devon, welcome to Uncover California.
Oh, it's so great to see you. I think we kicked our relationship off with a retweet from our great new president, or our president returned, President Trump. So it's a pleasure, and I promised you then, as soon as I got through everything, and we saw the future on the horizon, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
Promises made, promises kept.
yes, just like the president. It's kind of interesting because I ended up going to the Beverly Hills fundraiser. I was working on the Trump campaign, bundling for him and fundraising for him. And I'll never forget, I walk over, I see my friend Tony Holt Kramer, who's one of Trump's neighbors, and I saw you, and I'm like, what is Devon Archer, Hunter's ex-business partner, doing at a Trump front fundraiser? And so I remember I'm like, hey, come here, I want to talk to you. And we did get that infamous photo, which, the National Pulse picked up, and then, of course, President Trump did. But
Right.
I'm really happy to see that you're doing well. I'm sure your family is quite relieved. You've got 3 children, I believe?
Yep, 18, 12, and 10.
Wow. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm sure that they're happy to have dad without the crap.
absolutely. No, we are. That was it was interesting that he retweeted that, not to belabor that point, but he retweeted that, and then something like geopolitical happened, and it was starting to go viral, and I was like, oh, I don't need this just yet, but I'll say that that just his retweet actually ended up in my pardon memo. So you played a critical part in my history, and I'm thankful you took that picture, and it was great meeting you there, and I'm just really happy to be here. I'm also thrilled with the president's decision to move forward with my pardon. I was caught up in a ridiculous, what turns out to be a fairly scandalous accusation, and then indictment, and then reversal, and then re-indictment, and sentencing and unsentencing. And at the end of the day, the family was what kind of sustained me through all this. I spent 10 years fighting this. I was first subpoenaed under, from a whistleblower from Hunter Biden in, I think, October of 2015. I could have pled guilty and gotten 300 hours of community service, but I could never stare my kids in the eye, or my wife, and have taken a knee like that. So I fought it. And lo and behold, our great president has risen again through incredible adversity that makes my adversity look, like minute, relative to what he had gone through in the lawfare that he fought. But I can empathize with him, and I think, based on our conversation a couple weeks ago, he certainly empathized with me, and so I'm just absolutely thrilled to be able to talk about it and and be on the record and be open and be free.
That's I can't tell you. I kind of look back at this situation, and I have followed everything very closely. And to me, I come at it in an angle from what they did to President Trump with the impeachment. I look at that and I followed it so closely. All he did was ask a question. All he did was say, what's going on with Joe Biden? And I believe it was 2015 where he wanted Shokin fired. Now, if I remember correctly, you had a meeting with Hunter and the owners of Burisma in Dubai, and there was a lot of pressure to get a hold of Washington, D.C. Do you
Correct.
want to
Right.
dig into that a little bit? Like, what happened there?
Yeah, so we were at a board, it wasn't a meeting, it was a board meeting in Dubai. It was probably November of 2015, if I remember correctly. I think I actually have I have the the board medallion literally right behind me on my, so I can tell you it was December or November of 2015. And Shokin was, applying a lot of pressure on Zlochevsky. Zlochevsky was the, chairman and kind of owner, main shareholder, they call it,
A
in
Burisma.
yes, in the oligarch, mini-garch terms, you call the shareholder. I think it's to limit liability, but he was the boss, and they had, some extreme pressure from Shokin. We were there at the meeting. It was communicated to us that there was pressure from the prosecution. We had the meeting in Dubai because Zlochevsky didn't want to go back to Ukraine. I think his house and cars had been seized at that point. And yeah, and there was a a unique call. I testified to this. It's all on public record. It's all on the internet. It's all in the impeachment articles and what have you. Comer's work. But basically, after the board meeting, got a strange call that from Vadim Sholshevsky or Vadim Pajarsky, who was the corporate secretary of Burisma, and Nikolai, that they wanted to go drive up to Hunter's hotel about 30 minutes away, which was awkward at, after a board dinner at 9:30 at night. And that we really needed to, talk to the powers that be. We drove up, that 30 minutes, probably got there at about 10 p.m. He was saying the Four Seasons. We were at the Burj Al Arab. And then we got out, had some small talk, some espressos on one of the verandas of the villas at the Four Seasons. And Vadim and Nikolai said, okay, we need to call DC. We need to call DC. They took Hunter aside, walked up to another veranda, watched them curiously, and they called DC. Again, I did this under oath, so I wasn't in a position where I would want to perjure myself. I did not hear him call his father. He very well likely could. He could have called Blinken, could have been any number of high-level officials, but it was an important call. And what it manifested in was the firing of Shokin. So
that infamous meeting that we've all seen online where he says, we're not giving you the $1 billion unless you fire the prosecutor. Correct?
Right.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time. Well, there's still they may.
The practical breadcrumbs would lead you to believe that that call instigated that not threat, but that demand at the end of the day. So I don't, again, I can't, I speculate that he did call his dad or Blinken, one of the two, but I'm not really sure because I didn't hear it. I think that Comer and Jordan were very very they really wanted me to hear me say that, but I don't have proof. But
Right.
I that's where it was all leading, and I was on kind of a need to know basis at the time,
Yeah,
and
and
then
see,
where it ended up.
yeah, to me, it seems like, here you are, an international businessman, graduate of Yale Law School. You end
Yale
up,
undergrad. I never went to law school. I got the
oh,
most expensive law degree in the world, about a $10 million law degree that took 10 years.
yeah, but it
But
was at Yale where you kind of connected with Christopher Hines and all of
yes,
those people, correct?
Yale, Yale undergrad,
Yeah, so
Yale college.
I'm sure that at the time you were just doing business. I mean, you're a young guy kicking butt, making money, and I'm sure your life was super exciting. At any point, do you feel that you were used by the Bidens to be their fall guy if anything went wrong?
Well, I think that's what happened. If you talk to them, they say I used them. So he said, she said, but I was, I had, done everything in my life to kind of rise up from a, you know, middle class socioeconomic background. Had an incredible childhood, filled with sports and activities and loving and nurturing parents and a wonderful high school girlfriend who ended up being my wife. And I had, gotten into Yale, which was a big reach for a public school in Long Island, and was, thrilled and happy-go-lucky and didn't think there were evil people or the dark side would affect me in this world. And, I ended up being that fall guy. But until, nothing, had challenged me in regards to major setbacks. I mean, I had some physical, I broke my neck and my back and some physical things happened to me, but I never had been, really lied to and used and kind of kept out on a limb on a need-to-know basis to be kind of an expendable fall guy. And that's really what happened at the end of the day. In my case, again, there was a whistleblower. It was against, it was against, or the whistle was blown on Hunter for suspicious activity report and activity, and their investigation ensued, and at the end of the investigation, I got moved from witness to subject to target in a few days, or 43 days or something like that. Was indicted, and they showed up with long guns at my house, and it was quite an experience. And from there, I actually started to grow up. I built some strength over the last decade, though I did miss my 40s, holistically because of the Biden. So I'm not I'm ready to kind of leapfrog and kind of start from here.
Well, that's good because I want to see you succeed. And again, I've had friends that were targeted for January 6th, for instance. And I think that's been one of the most concerning things to me that I've seen over the last 8 years is the lawfare. And this guy stood 30 seconds in the threshold, nonviolent, and they showed up with 15 members of a SWAT team with long guns in his face, threw a father who wasn't even there against the wall. And then I look at what they did to President Trump over the last 8 years. And this impeachment, really, I think President Trump was saying, what the heck's going on with the Biden family? What
Right.
was the Biden's business? What were they selling that made them so valuable, Devin?
Well, I mean, I think it's quite obvious they were selling the Biden brand, and you had, Hunter out there in the business world where you had the second most powerful man in the world theoretically, on speed dial, and you can do a lot with the power of the United States, especially internationally, having those types of signals. Because a lot of countries, I mean, even though we are, kind of plagued by lawfare, we've been plagued by, 30 years of kind of Clintonian, Democrat rule that's fostered a deep state that, I equate to kind of the dark side. I see it as like the Death Star at this point. And all of that's happening, but it is still relatively, fair, if you can call it that, relative to the rest of the world. I mean, if you're in Azerbaijan, or Kazakhstan or any other most other countries in the world, having a signal is, from the second most powerful man or the most powerful office in the world, gains a lot of mileage, right? So it's like,
Right.
I think, you're looking to close a deal, you want to, get a concession on an oil well to drill, or you want to drill a geothermal well, in Italy or wherever it may be. If you have the vice president, on speed dial, you call him and you're in that meeting, who do you think that deal is going to go to? So you're selling the brand, whatever the product may be, kind of the brand of, the country with the world's strongest military, and the Navy that controls the shipping lanes to the globe. If you have that guy who's second in charge on speed dial, and you can call him and put him on a conference call in a meeting, you're going to get that, you're going to get that deal closed. And especially, in countries where the press is controlled and rulers are authoritarian, for lack of a better term. So that's what they're selling. They're selling the brand. The backfill of the product didn't necessarily make a difference, whether it was, oil and gas, IP, wind farms, what have you.
Well, see, and I think they did it to enrich themselves. And I hate to say it, I don't think they're the only ones. I think that a lot of our elected officials have been laundering money through foreign countries for a long time. I think we even see that now with the USAID.
Mhm.
Doge discoveries, for instance, when we know now that Stacey Abrams started, these NGOs that they have, and they funneled her $2 billion. I think it's a problem we've had for a long time. Now, the Bidens, no offense to Hunter, I'm sure he's a very nice person, but I don't think he's a great artist. And I just think that there's so many ways that they have laundered money and, you know, filtered money to enrich themselves. You look at these elected officials going into office making six figures and leaving office with tens of millions of dollars, influence peddling. And do you think because of this and basically selling your influence to foreign nations like CEFC, for instance, in China, isn't it a
Mhm.
national security risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's quite obvious. I don't know if that, we've kind of, I don't know if that ever really goes away. I think it has to be controlled. I think there has to be, legislation and rules around that influence peddling. I just don't think that I don't think the rules are really defined, right? So obviously yeah, does it on the surface, does it doesn't seem ethical, but I don't think that there's this FAR rule. It's amorphous. It seems like there's a memo that's kind of decriminalized it somewhat. Obviously, we don't want, government officials or next of kin of government officials kind of selling our wares. But I think there has to be clear rules about how, business should be conducted and what that connectivity is with government. Obviously, there's a natural connection. There's business to government, B2G. Governments use businesses, they contract businesses, other governments buy our private sector products. So, there's always going to be that interaction. I just think that there was a very salacious, example that hopefully will set boundaries and set rules going forward. The salacious example being the son of the vice president out there kind of peddling, the Biden brand, and then actually taking, action to, affect different apparatus within the government to make calls that were advantageous to what outcomes he desired.
And Joe said that he wasn't involved in Hunter's business dealings. And we know the big guy got 10%. And I think Hunter at one point was complaining that Joe got half of his money. So tell us today, was Joe Biden involved in Hunter's business dealings?
Well, I think I think this point has been beaten to death. I mean, he was not running Excel spreadsheets or, making projections relative to, the next month's quarterly earnings, but he was aware of Hunter's business dealings. He was aware of his business partners. There's, letters that have been written to none other than myself, which I turned over to congressional investigators. And I think it's so obvious, it's almost like exhausting to talk about. He certainly was aware of it. Whether he remembered that, in his recent years, I'm not sure. But it was just self-evident. I don't think there's even any question who the big guy was, who people were referring to. Obviously, I don't bemoan the family for supporting each other. It's like the old Irish, you want a priest, a cop, and a businessman or whatever it was. So, you had Bo, who was the politician, and Dad, who was the bigger politician, and Hunter was there to bring home the bacon. And that's how they ran it. But he was certainly aware of it. And again, I don't know if there's, it's certainly morally and ethically wrong, and it's certainly morally and ethically wrong for him, for the former president, to continue to lie about it, right? So I don't think he actually did anything illegal that you could bring up, into a court of law. But he continually, like in the debates in 2020, he just lied. I mean, and that's not something that we want to see out of American leadership. It was just the blatant, disrespect for the American public.
See, but my problem with it is they use that to go after President Trump. They use that to go after Paul Manafort. They've used this to go after Rudy Giuliani. I can tell you personally, for me, I was in real estate for 25 years. And basically what happened, I, was always thrown in Facebook jail. But, for me and the American public, I posted about Hunter Biden's laptop story that Miranda Devine wrote.
Right.
Within 1 hour, I was censored and banned off Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And then they took my business pages and threw an attack on my business website. And completely, and I'm just a normal American citizen. And so from there, I walked away from my businesses. This is all I do now, because I was like, if they're going to do that to me, they're going to do it to anyone. But also seeing what they did to President Trump, I really feel like the FBI, the CIA targeted Trump the minute he came down the escalator with Russiagate and everything that they did to him. And again, when he pointed out what Joe was doing, that changed the entire election when they censored half of America. And it's my understanding, I think, that if they're going to be working as foreign agents, they should have been registered under the Foreign Registration Act, FARA. And I know they didn't do that. But did you feel at any time that, and I'm asking you to almost look with a 2020 vision or, hindsight, did you feel that the lawfare that was thrown at the country and President Trump, were they protecting the Bidens while targeting Trump? Because all he did was ask what was going on over there.
I think it's I don't even know where to start. I mean, I think it was let me take it from, because I think that's, again, self-evident. I think what we have to take away from the gross abuse of power, blatant lawfare that they took out on Trump and his family and going through their drawers at Mar-a-Lago while giving Biden a pass based on dementia. It's almost mind-boggling. And it should be just a lesson that history can't repeat itself in that form. I don't think it can, because I think it's so gross what they did to his family and how hard they tried to bring him down. And it's a testament to America that, that our citizens stood up and finally saw through the lies, and just the darkness of, what I don't think inherently that family is particularly, obviously they've got some issues, but it's just that system. I think it's 30 years of kind of unfettered power. It started, soon after, we rose to kind of be the the kind of preeminent country in the world where we thought we could have ultimate control. Russia had gone down, China was nothing yet, and we thought we were writing all the rules. And I think that policy in that time manifested in kind of like a super dark, deep state with the Democrat Party. Started with Clinton, obviously, manifested into a lot of really, some real darkness within the Clinton era. But then it like, it panned through, and then the deep straight state stayed in control through Bush, and kind of because they had such they had their wallets were so tied to kind of war and Halliburton and the whole
Mhm.
thing. And so I just think I see this whole kind of 30-year block of history of just being misguided legislation, and or not legislation, but misguided kind of policy in the administrative state, that led to a place where they just thought that, okay, we can't have this, this figure that's not inside of kind of our incentive structure, and doesn't kind of play by our rules. And so they used everything at their beck and call, which was the DOJ and the three-letter agencies, and just tried to ruin the man. And I've played, I've felt a small part of that as being a target that they put under DOJ to keep me quiet, and keep me away from, speaking the truth about Biden. I had to walk a tightrope, through, because they could have had me report. They tried to have me report to jail a number of times,
Right.
and or prison, I should say. And so I just the amount of lawfare and the what they tried to do to him is I hope it was I hope it was just gross enough that it never happens again. That's all I can take away from it. It's really like speaking about it gets me riled up, because the guy is a remarkable human being. I think
Yeah.
probably the most effective, politician, since I don't know, I didn't know politicians before media, but in modern history with modern media, the most effective politician and leader that we've had, in our modern history.
I agree with you. I think that the scary thing, I think we've got a fourth branch of government that are unelected bureaucrats. You look at the NGOs, you look at even now there's this group Indivisible that are doing all the Tesla protests. And we know that they're funded by George Soros and Arabella Advisors, which takes in foreign money that goes to funds, that has pop up groups that come and go, and they make the signs, and everybody at these school protests has the same tent. And they concern me more than the politicians, because it seems like they have more power than these politicians. This invisible fourth branch of government seems to be running things. And I think that's why they hate Trump. And I think that's why they tried to kill him. And, two times, two assassination attempts. And the thing that's concerning me now is Antifa and these protesters, they're starting up again. And I'm really hoping that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi put a stop to this, because I truly believe unless people are held accountable, this never ends.
Mhm.
This never ends. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my thoughts on that, I think this transient kind of cause pop up Soros, Antifa adjacent, um, you know protests, I think are, yeah, I see them popping up, but and they get, obviously they get over covered by mainstream media because they like to make some noise. But there has to be opposition. I don't see that. I don't see that anywhere near the actual organic, um, you know, phenomena that was MAGA. And you always have to have opposition in our country. You have to have, you know, you have to have dialogue. I mean, it's like this, our founding fathers put this together as a, for more or less, it can be more than, but generally a two-party system, so that there is conversation, there is dialogue. I see that as kind of a deflating balloon. I mean, they've blown up some Teslas, which is horrible. I think they're going to be persecuted and, and serve their time for doing that. but I don't see it as I don't see it as a credible threat. I think that what the MAGA movement was an organic, peaceful organization of people that were just sick of what the established Clintonian Democrat deep state, administrative state, whatever the buzzwords you want to use, have kind of put together. And I think I said it before, like, one of the great great book, Sun Tzu in the Art of War says, it says always attack your enemy with the sun at your back and from the high ground. But what he also says is don't mess with your enemy when they're screwing up. Don't go in the middle of their own. So I dig Sun Tzu's advice right now. I don't see a credible threat from the BLM kind of cause jumpers to anti-Elon Doge who's just trying to make our government more efficient. I don't see that as much of a credible threat to kind of true American values. People just want to prosper. They want low gas prices. They want to, be in an environment where the American dream is alive and well. And I think that we're on our way. I think that the tariff policy that they put in place with through Bassan and Trump is right on point. Whether we're going to be making T-shirts back in America, I don't think that's the case. But I think getting on, zero tariff or zero trade tariffs with our allies around the world is absolutely critical. And I think it'll create some balance and put kind of opportunity back in the working class in our country is what made us so great. And it's also what got President Trump elected.
So you're telling me them are going to go away?
Them can do what they want.
That's funny.
As long as it's not it's not policy. Everybody, I'm a libertarian, I think, at heart, and people can.
I was a
jump on
total Ron Paul supporter. I loved Ron Paul. Ron
Yeah,
Paul was my
exactly.
man.
Like,
I
let
was
him.
part of the Levolution.
If you want to identify, I don't care if you identify as an orangutan. It doesn't really matter. But live in peace and
Leave the
and
kids alone.
Exactly. Leave the kids, right. Maybe it's a post-18 kind of thing. But yeah, leave the kids alone is a good point. But other than that, I think that the American people have spoken. There was certainly a mandate that came down in November, and it was against all odds. It's against all of our media, mainstream media. Thank God for these new formats like podcasts and social media and being able to get kind of truth and citizens' voices out there, and also getting President Trump's voice out there,
Yeah.
and the folks that campaigned with him. So it's um, listen, let them kind of fuddle around. I think there's no identity of the Democrat Party right now. You've got the anti-oligarchs or whatever, Bernie and AOC, and if that's our opponent in 2028, so be it.
Well, my friend, we're out of time. What
Oh
is
no.
next? I know. What is next for Devon Archer? And if you want people to find you or follow you on social media, where can they do that?
No, there's no following me. The next for me is
You're like, I don't want any attention. Leave me alone. Leave
I'm
me alone.
I'm back to business and focused on family. I'm working on some Web3, crypto adjacent type of finance. I figured I'd missed 10 years of my life, so I had to leapfrog. I got to get right in there. But yeah, just focus on business and hopefully going to be a part and helpful to the midterms and onward. I think I've found my people in my party, and I'm very happy about that. So God
Well,
bless the President of the United States, and thank you for having me.
you know what, brother? I am so glad that I met you. I really am. That you've got a really good soul about you. I could tell that right away. And, wish your family my best. I truly appreciate. I'm sure their support throughout the years has been incredible. And, there's families that come together and
Hmm.
when times are tough. And thank God you have that, because I
Oh,
tell you, a lot of people couldn't go through what you did.
I've been
So
blessed.
thank you so much for coming on. Keep in touch. If you come out to California, I want you on in person.
Soon.
And
Absolutely.
yep, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, you guys, That's it for this week. Next week, we're going to have one of the city council members from Ventura. I don't know if you remember, I told you this story of a couple weeks ago. We went down to Ventura to see this care policy, and I had Taryn Swain on, who was told, "We don't pray here." And it was really demonic. Well, I've been getting into it with this trans man named Amber Thompson online. Well, this guy's still pushing this care policy, and we're still fighting it. So I'm bringing Jim Duran in to see where they're at, because she's now attacking him. So anyways, you guys, we're going to have fun next week. Make sure you come back. Follow me on X at Lori Mills, the number 4 CA42, and follow us on Rumble, Uncover Cali. And if you guys can help us out at all, we could use it. Go to uncovercali.com if you have tips for the show, or if you just want to give us a donation. And remember, use our sponsors. We'll be back next week. Bye.
Welcome to the MAGA Mall. We have the largest selection of the finest quality MAGA caps and Trump caps that are made. We have over 250 hats and 1,000 different products in 28 product categories. And you can buy any of our products by going to our website. It's at themagamall.com, and use promo code CALI. And remember, it's always a MAGA day at the MAGA Mall.